everybody, and we've got a great matchup on slate here. The overwhelming favorites here in this portion of the qualifiers in Belt Slap. We'll get our first look at them here this weekend up against the Cold Alpacas, who played earlier on today. But it's not me alone here on the desk. Mifflin is with me to walk me through all the action we're going to see here, Mifflin. And if Belt Slap are as advertised, then it's going to be difficult to take these guys down.
Nigh impossible, right? I mean, no one else has managed to do it throughout almost the entirety of the year. Maybe individual maps have been taken off Belt Slap, but sets, not really. These guys are so absolutely strong. It comes down to name recognition, time in the scene, the ability to play at the current level right now. Belt Slap is just far and above ahead.
Here's a look at what we've seen so far. The first couple of teams drop down to the first round of the losers bracket, awaiting the losers of these matches. Here's a closer look at the schedule. Obviously, what we've got for you today and tomorrow. That third match on the list is where we're headed right now. Belt Slap versus Cold Alpacas. In Mifflin, the big question then becomes, can you beat these guys? How do you beat these guys? I mean, nobody's been able to do it on a consistent enough basis. At some point, it's got to be hard to analyze, right? When they're literally just better at Smite than the majority of the people they play against.
It is, so I think it's not how do we beat Belt Slap, it's how do we play our own best game. And if I'm on the side of Cold Alpacas right now, my entire attention is making sure that Vaporish Coast, the Penta Kid, the guy who got a quadra earlier today, 2 triples, like 4 doubles, yeah, let's make sure he's comfortable. Let's put him on whatever he's best at and pray that it's enough.
Fair enough. I mean, some of the speculation around this Belt Slap team is that maybe the duo lane is somehow the weak point of this squad, and I say weak point with some hesitation because Trickstank and Arkle both very, very good at the game. But if there's an area that you can maybe exploit, maybe it's somewhere in that duo lane. And I'm glad, though, that we give some highlight there to Johnny, because when you're playing on a star-studded roster like you are here on Belt Slap, you got to step up and play your game, and consistently Johnny out of the jungle has proven that you give him one of these carry characters and he'll make it work.
Look, when you're surrounded by names like Zeros, like Trickstank, like Arkle, you don't expect the guy named Johnny to be the very consistent win condition. But so often, these heavy hitters, these big names on Belt Slap, don't even need to wake up. Johnny's already cleaned up the entire game on the Kali, the Bakasura, the Ao Kuang. He's doing it all, and that's most likely why they keep him around, right? Why work when Johnny's willing to do it all for you?
What do you think? You think, the Cold Alpacas even bother trying to ban anything away from Johnny here in picks and bans for Game 1, or is it not even worth it at this point?
It's a double-edged sword. Is it worth banning out Johnny? I don't know. I mean, how much better is his Ao Kuang than his Bakasura or something along those lines? Because it seems like every team is going to ban Kali against this guy. Sometimes we see them go down to the Bakas and the Ao Kuangs as well, but then, well, you wasted all your bans on Johnny. You still got to contend with Arkle. You got to contend with Zeros. Man, I don't know how I would beat Belt Slap, but you got to have some way in.
All right, it's hard to do it in picks and bans. We'll see right now what that strategy looks like for the Cold Alpacas as we head on in to Game 1. It's such a good point. We've talked, I think, at length during the SPL this year about how SSG are maybe one of the hardest teams to pick ban against because you got to worry about Dardez and Cherio, and just so many different pieces of that team require so many specific picks or bans. Maybe Belt Slap kind of brings some of that to the table here at the SEC level, something to keep in mind. For sure. Aphrodite gets taken away, a la Dardez and SSG, if we're looking at that. Khepri as well, Miff. Why do we think we see a Khepri ban here early on?
Khepri's just good, man. It's so frustrating to play against. It's one of the easier to execute on Guardians. Scarab's Blessing, still one of the best ultimates in the game. And so often now we see these cringe ganks in the duo lane. Khepri is one of the best Guardians for contending with it. You might trade out your own life, but if someone shows up over there, just use Abduct, trade yourself out, at least your Hunter makes it out alive. And I think that's really why we're starting to see him come back into the meta just ever so slightly.
Yep. And obviously opens up a little bit of pick presence for the Cold Alpacas in the first pick slot here. They have the ability to leave something very important open. But we've seen kind of this weird shifting meta already through a couple of games here today where the priority seems to kind of shift all over the place depending on what one team wants in one game. I haven't really seen a consistent thread on who gets first picked overall. Maybe Rom if he's still around, but he's not here in this one. Second ban overall there for Belt Slap. Guan Yu, Myth, we've seen him a couple times here today. You think he's worth the first pick?
I think it's strong. There's not really much you could do to counter him out, and it's a good flex pick as well. Could go into the jungle, support, or even the soul lane. So we're going to see whether or not Belt Slap wants to address him immediately if they think they've got a good read on where it's going to land. But might as well take some meta picks. Sun Wukong, incredibly strong. A true no-counter pick god. He's going to be just fine in that soul lane or even flexing to the jungle. I would be surprised if they don't elect to pick up a Cupid here, so color me surprised. Instead, it's going to be the Sobek, likely for Trix Tank. That's already a very strong front line for Belt Slap, but it leaves up a bunch of priority picks for Cold Alpacas. You still have things like Ra, you still have the Cupid, and I'm making myself look like a fool as Surket and Heimdall get hovered.
No, I mean, look, I don't think you're far off. Cupid, obviously very strong from what we've seen. We have seen, I think, through however many we've had 6 games so far, we've seen a pretty healthy mix of different hunters get picked, with Rom definitely towards the forefront, Heimdall right there behind, Jingwei a couple of times, Apollo, but not in the long lane, over in the jungle. We've seen him get picked in here as well. Surket obviously shines light on Preds here, Myth, I think, for the Cold Alpacas and what he was able to do earlier on today, but maybe not even worth looking at that pick. We're going to get another look, I'm assuming, at an Apollo out of the jungle here, unless he's worth something over there on the long lane as well. At any rate, we're going to get Apollo nonetheless.
Apollo jungle is incredibly interesting because the counter to Apollo jungle is outpacing him throughout the early game, and Surket should certainly be able to do that. Her jungle clear is incredibly high. The second she takes over to level 5, she's going to have a ton of kill potential no matter where she goes, whereas the relative strength of Apollo is his ability to be anywhere on the map with his ultimate, and he's going to scale incredibly well into the late game, essentially becoming just another hunter. So it seems like Belt Slap are going to be looking to play a little bit more of a drawn-out game if this is going to be Apollo jungle. But I don't want to sleep on Apollo solo, something else we've been seeing in Ranked, and it has a decent matchup into Guan, or even into the long lane if Guan is support. So it's a strong flex pick.
Yeah, maybe Apollo is the new age flex pick, something I think we all need to be mindful of as we move on through this weekend as well. It's not guaranteed in one spot or another. Final wave of bans, though, starting to kick off here. Ganesh taken away, so a couple support-focused picks there. We obviously know what Astio was able to do on the Ganesh earlier on today. Chang'e and the Morgan both taken off the board by the Cold Alpacas here down the swing, so sensing that a mid-lane pick is still necessary for Zeros, but Thoth is still around, and looks like that's the way he's going to go.
Yeah, Zeros has gone on record saying that he loves Thoth into Heimdall. He thinks it's a 100-0 matchup in favor of him. If he ever catches him isolated in the jungle, he said he'll always win that 1v1. He should almost never be getting hit by the Heimdall ultimate as well. So it's no surprise to me that he's looking for this pick right here. And it's going to be incredibly strong against the rest of the draft here. Guan Yu is going to be a dive-focused god, but Thoth having the most range out of anyone else means that cavalry charge is really going to have to go the full distance if he wants to make contact.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't gas up Belt Slap enough, I don't think. They're kind of playing with house money here, and it just gets easier for them when you get a comfort pick for Zeros that is the Thoth. And really, the question always becomes in these heavily lopsided, at least what we assume to be a heavily lopsided matchup, is has the underdog team given themselves a chance out of picks and bans? The Cabrakan certainly makes things interesting here with a Merlin to round out the draft there in the mid, so I suppose Cabrakan support with Heimdall ADC is what we're looking at here, and I'll pose the question to you, Myth. Do you think the Cold Alpacas have given themselves a chance, at least out of the draft?
I like what they're going for. It's very dive-centric. Cabrakan, Surket, and Guan Yu have very clear, definable targets that they can look for. The Apollo and the Thoth are going to be contending with the wall from Cabrakan. No way to escape it outside of a Phantom or breaking it down themselves. And it creates the space for Surket and Guan Yu to get in there. And now we do get a better look at this draft from Belt Slap as well. It looks like it is likely going to be the Apollo jungle, which means that another squishy target gets picked up inside a Ho Yi. I think Cold Alpacas have the ability to win out, but they need to win hard in the early game. Yeah,
that's the name of the game here, it seems, is push that advantage early and push that advantage often. You know, we know that potential of this Apollo out of the jungle, and it's going to be a lot of fun to follow along with here. I mean, all of that being said, though, Myth, your chips are still probably in the Belt Slap corner?
Look, I'm going to be completely blatant here with you and chat. I think
would never
Apollo
expect
Jungle
anything less.
might be a little bit overrated, but if anyone's gonna make it work, it's Belt Slap, and I think they're gonna make it look really good here. Yeah, my money's on them.
Belt Slap, they're a hard team to beat, but have lost blood, I suppose, in the past. The Cold Alpacas versus Belt Slap, game 1. Let's kick it off.
Well, that's right, Dave. They've lost a few games out there. The question is whether or not they'll continue that trend or if they're going to continue the other trend of going undefeated throughout the regular season. Myself, Gormeister, on here with none other than Alpha Jackal jumping in to chair 2 for me. And this is going to be an interesting one. I mean, Belt Slap are kind of known in Europe at least to slap literally everybody around. A couple of teams have come close. But do you think Cold Alpacas have what it takes with this draft to give them a run for their money?
I think it's less about what Cold Alpacas have drafted and the fact that they've ticked off quite a few boxes about what not to give Belt Slap. You don't give Julio tier? Check. You don't give Johnny one of his hyper carry gods? Check. You don't give Arkle Rama? Check. And I think when you've got those 3 all in the mix, you set yourself up for a decent chance of giving Belt Slap a run for their money.
And I feel like maybe it must have lagged over the name. You didn't say Johnny in there anywhere. I feel like Johnny as well. Someone normally, we're seeing bans against him left and right. I mean, constantly Kali bans, Bakasura bans, all of the sorts, and none of those come through. In fact, majority healers here were banned out by Cold Alpacas. The only one they didn't heal was Ra, and that was banned by Belt Slap. But Johnny's gone on to this Apollo. Is this something that he can carry on the way we're used to seeing?
I'm unsure, because I've not seen Johnny play a character in this sort of style, one that wants to stay on the edges of the fight, comes in a bit later in the fight. Oh no, wait, that's a Bakasura. I've just described Bakasura, and he plays Bakasura extremely well. He plays Kali extremely well, which does that exact same play style. So I think Johnny does have good opportunities here to make this Apollo jungle a success, given what he plays in the past.
I'm just excited to see how he handles the whole ranged thing he now has, something I don't think he's too used to as they come forward with it. An interesting pickup and a good pluck comes down from Trickstank there. Burns the beads off of Pretty Prime. Just showcases where their aggression can be. This 3v3 from Belt Slap is probably, I mean, it's still strong. These are 3 great players who have, again, dominated all of their regular season games. It's just going to be interesting to see how it works out against Preds' Circuit, as it worked out pretty well for them. As well as over here, Kana had a pretty solid Osiris game earlier today. And Julio, like you said, not on the signature tier, just knocked down to Wukong. How terrible, is going to have to deal with that.
And he's actually got himself into a decent matchup with the Guan Yu versus the Wukong, as you did mention. So long as he stays inside that minion wave, Julio's going to be finding himself very difficult to interrupt that Tallow Assault, meaning Connor should have clear advantage over here, especially with his sustain bonus with that Warrior's Will. I see this being a good matchup for Connor. See pressure going over to the right-hand side. I'm expecting to see Preds maybe look to lean on that a bit more. Try and put pressure onto Johnny in the mid lane, or put pressure onto Johnny's jungle lead.
And being able to find some of that, yeah, it'd be nice. And this actually is Styria.
What's a Styria?
Bastion coming through. And gonna be able to go for the blue buff invade. As they're just trying to set this up. Should be able to clear this one up, but Johnny's in the neighborhood. So is Preds. They're coming in. The taunt's going to be good. And it looks like Johnny might have been able to secure that. Either that, or Kana's just leaving it on the ground. Yeah, and since Julio's not wandering over, looks like they're going to be successful in stripping away some of that XP, but not quite brave enough to run in and steal it away. And I was wrong twice there. Julio able to secure it for himself. So ultimately, they don't get a fight and they don't get the buff.
Yeah, that's just Apollo Jungle, the only one that could have potentially have stolen that buff back because of the fact he's got that range ability. So Apollo Jungle working out already. Vaporage Coast not under pressure to use his beads just yet. Does have a slight deficit to Arkle, considering he's had to split a few more ways with Astiniax and Trickstank did with Arkle. So I imagine that Arkle's about to hit level 5 here along with Trickstank. So the fight here could be a bit of a bait from Cold Alpacas.
Yeah, good stun, good trembles coming in from Fat Loki himself, but not enough to find a kill, especially not on the Trickstank. Maybe you find Arkle in that, and it's a different story. A little bit of an attempt on Xerxes' life, but again, unable to lock him down long enough. That Thoth just too safe. Johnny going for the back here, so it looks like aggression from Belt Slap's going to go ahead and just take a pause. They're playing pretty comfortably, and they got the red buff away from Cold Alpacas, so they have been able to come in and get themselves a small lead.
It's really interesting just to see how Beltslap adapts their game plan based on the draft of the enemy team. We usually see Beltslap come out guns blazing, usually on the back of Johnny getting a triple kill at the very early stages of the game on duo lane, but this time they're being very reserved in their playstyle. They're playing a bit back, they're playing very reactionary to the side of cold Alpacas, because they realize that their early game composition that Beltslap have doesn't really match up too well to the cold Alpacas draft. You got Kabrakin, you got Saket, you got Guan Yu, you even have the Merlin there for good early game control. If they try to fight that early, they find themselves on the losing end of it. So why not wait until that mid-game point? Why not wait until Thoth comes online a bit more? Why wait until Julio's able to rotate? Why not wait until Arkel's got a couple of items online before you start looking to fight? And it's proven them well so far, because they still find themselves in the gold lead.
I mean, yeah, as you said, already in the gold lead. Kana gonna go in for the stun. Luckily for Bird Form and Wukong, he has nothing to worry about ever. As Trickstank is going in for the blue buff invade, might just be caught out here. Again, no aggression coming in from cold Alpacas. They're just kind of letting him roam freely, recognizing that, I mean, it's just a Sobek. What is he going to be able to do? If he plucks you, something might go wrong. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case here. Preds, on the other side, is the one looking for the plucks. Julio not leaving lane. The blink available for this Circuit. Same thing for Trickstank, who looks like he's trying to line up something counter. Pred's gonna go in, but not quite find the lockdown. Now Trickstank looking for the knock up and the toss back right into it. Lurking in the waters comes through. Preds is gonna be able to get out of there. Kana gonna be forced to fall back as well. Julio up on the somersault cloud, and ultimately, no one dies.
Almost manages to get Preds there. Does interrupt the leap away, but still has a dash as Preds, so he's able to get out of there just fine. Ultimate trades, blink trades going off. Good matchup so far for both teams, and Porshkos does find himself eating a tiny bit of that Stunbreaker ultimate. Of course, can just teleport himself out of there very easily. It does get the better of that trade. Still has his ultimate available, can still banish Arkil to the sky, and will have good ability for Preds to rotate in on that as well. So I imagine, with the fact that he has the ultimate advantage, I would expect Preds to come over and maybe say hello in duo lane.
I'll have to see him start getting aggressive soon. I mean, Hu Yi isn't necessarily the most difficult hunter to gank, but he's not really easy to lock down. So we'll see what Preds is able to do. Beads up for both hunters over there and the mid laners as it comes online now. And Johnny looking to get aggressed on here in the jungle. Good Mez is going to be able to turn this around. Julio comes in. Good walls from Asteria, trying to just keep things going forward. The damage onto Julio seems to be too much, but the bird form just a little bit better. Gets him on out of there, and down from the skies comes Johnny, looking for the kill onto Preds, but he's going to lose out that first blood to the other side. Now the lockdown is coming through. Good ult from Zeros just to make sure the damage is there, but it looks like Johnny is the one in danger. They're trying to find the last hit. Zeros comes in with the double kill. Trickstank just looking to zone. Johnny unsure whether or not he wants to come in here. It looks like Beltslap can call it quits if they want to here, winning 2-1, but Pretty Prime's low, and Trickstank seems to still want a little bit of extra.
Trickstank was never going to let him just take those back camps for free. That is 100% a chase for Trickstank every single day of the week, and he just does it. It's what Trickstank does. He finds himself in a situation where he has an advantage, and he will just press into your jungle 24/7. He will fight you at your speed buff as the Sobek just to delay you 5 seconds. That is Trickstank through and through.
And he doesn't care if it means he loses any experience, although at this point, he hasn't lost any. I mean, he's on par with Astia, making sure that things continue going their way. A 2-level lead there in the jungle. I mean, this Apollo, look, I was ready to give a little bit of grief. Like, you know, Johnny isn't technically here hard carrying. He hasn't got any of the kills just yet. But the fact that he's got such a massive lead and they've been stripping it away, I think just goes to show where this Apollo jungle can succeed. Or maybe that's just Beltslap.
That's what Johnny does. If he's not carrying in the early game, he will farm and carry in the mid game. There will be a point where Johnny comes into a fight, takes all the kills, and will be singing his praises on the desk. 1000%, that is what will happen this game. And it looks like it's the same build as what we saw out from Ice in the last game. The Transcendence finished after the Ninja Tabai, just gives him a little bit of attack speed in the jungle. Also gives him a lot of power, a lot of time in the sky. And I think that's one of the big things you're going to be looking for in the Apollo. You just stay up into your ultimate, wait and see the fight progress a bit, and then you can choose your target to land on in the backside.
I mean, you had said that while we were watching the last game. You went at one point, you were like, Ice has been in the air for 30 seconds straight. Like, he's just been hovering there, waiting to see what would happen, whether or not it's right to go in. Something Johnny's going to be able to do here. A little ludicrous, but at the same time, it works. I mean, you've got this global ultimate. You can be anywhere. Probably the best case scenario for your jungler. We'll have to see if they can continue up this amount of pressures. They've slowly but surely got themselves a pretty massive gold lead. I mean, there's only 3 kills in the game, and yet we're starting to push on the point where it could be 2,000 gold in favor of Belt Slap, and it's just from stealing objectives away, or at least jungle camps.
I think the bigger thing is the fact that it's 3,000 experience difference at this point in the game. And as you said, most of that lead has gone into the jungle, but slight leads coming out from the mid lane for the support for the dual lane. So the only one that's really ahead is Connor, and most likely happening there because of this favorable matchup against the Wukong. So again, if I'm calling Alpacas, if you want to look to push into Belt Slap, if you want to look for a lane to put some of your eggs into the basket for, you need to look at this solo lane. You need to look at getting Connor a full level lead. You want to try and get him to start rotating towards his mid lane because of the fact he is on par with the rest of Belt Slap.
Well, it looks like they had a somewhat similar idea, but unfortunately Wards caught out Preds. No one was able to get in there and try and get the lockdown onto Julio. Although, again, it's just so difficult to lock down a Wukong. Preds hanging out on the right side of the map, even just trying to get Kana ahead, feels like it might be, well, just a fruitless endeavor. We'll see if he can do it now. Standing right on top of a ward, Julio knows exactly where he is, has the ult. I don't think you're too stressed over here in the solo lane. I think you can feel that. Cold Alpaca's looking to pivot back over towards mid.
I think what they need to do, though, Cold Alpacas, is get some sentry walls on that side if they're going to be looking to gank and put pressure over there, or just continue the fight onto Trixtank.
And he's already low. Good dash is going to get him out of there. Up in the skies and come crashing down. It's going to be Johnny. Look, good damage from behind. Julio gets one. Johnny gets another. And they double their kill count for this one. They still lose Trixtank. They might be able to pick up Preds, backing right there in the middle of the jungle. Julio's in the neighborhood, but it doesn't look like anyone's going to do that. In fact, Johnny is looking for something else. No, not the speed buff anymore. He knows there's a lurking Cirquette somewhere nearby, and he's going to be able to find her. Just pinged on the ward for both of them. Now it looks like Preds should be able to get out Tier 1 doing its job as Julio goes up into the Somersault Cloud. Still another 2-for-1 in favor of Belt Slap.
I could have potentially looked to have gone on Connor there, but I think the breastplate of the Fowler and the fact that Johnny doesn't have any penetration right now just to turn him a slight bit. Could have gone for the speed buff, but instead looked for the potential kill onto Preds, wasn't able to pick that one up. So a bit of a lead escape there for Cold Alpacas, as Johnny only 3 levels ahead at this point when it could have been 4, but Tower looks like it's going to fall here. Johnny does eventually pick it up for Julio, and does free the Wukong now. So if you are pretty prime in that mid lane, Preds in the jungle, or even as Stiniax in the support role, you have to worry about a Wukong on top of the 3v3 in mid.
It's going to be dangerous once those rotations come through, and I mean, having the Ox Form knockup and or Tiger Stun that comes through would be brilliant, especially paired with that. A nice root from Zeros just to stop Preds from getting aggressive. And that jungle is definitely suffering 4 levels down right now for the Cirquette, and falling behind pretty much everyone, just barely ahead of their own support. And I mean, Trixtank even has a level up on the Cirquette, so you can see that Preds is just not getting the farm that they want to be able to impact this game.
And looks like Preds is going to go into more of a bruiser defensive build on the Cirquette rather than more of a damage-oriented one. Maybe goes a bit of flex of damage in the later stages of his build, but that means they are lacking damage out of the jungle. They're going to have to rely on Pretty Prime and Vaporish Coast to do the deed for them. And they're not really fighting around the mid lane and the dual lane right now. It has been mostly on that solo side, has been mostly around that blue buff, around Totem of Coup, sometimes spilling over towards the Fire Giant and back camps. But again, it's just had to be Pretty Prime rotated into the fight. So I'm not a huge fan of the start that Preds has gone, but I think it can work out more towards that mid-portion, later stages of the game, because of the fact they'll have 3 frontliners diving onto the backline, looking to just subdue Zeros, subdue Arkil, and just allowing space to be created for Vaporish Coast and Pretty Prime.
Well, speaking of dive, right now Coast is the one in danger. Looks like he'll get out of that, but ults and both relics used to be able to get out of there. Pretty Prime 1 hit away. Preds able to pick up Zeros. Astia gonna get aggressed on this Cabrakan. Doesn't look too healthy, and it looks like Arkil will get the kill there. Johnny hunts down Pretty Prime in the jungle, and they're right back to it. Another 2-for-1 in their favor. Losing Zeros maybe hurts them. It leaves them ripe for this gold fury. All I have to do is zone that Guan Yu. Good blink from Kana, but it's not going to be enough. A great pluck from Trixtank. Gets the zone, gets the gold, and Belt Slap continue their lead.
They continue the ascension and the formalities, as most people would have predicted. Beltslap taking this game, although it has been a bit closer than most people would have expected at this point. Only up 4,000 gold. Experience difference probably going to be somewhere around there as well. They look to push down this tier 1 tower on the left-hand side. But then again, we have likened Beltslap in the past, as we see the experience difference is about 7,500. I didn't think it was going to be that much. We have likened Beltslap in the past, to the old Energy style of days, where games have gone on even or close until about the 16, 17 minute mark, then all of a sudden Beltslap just win a fight and take the entire game.
It definitely has been their MO. A lot of control, not a lot of games lost for this team. So it feels like an uphill battle from the get-go from Cold Alpacas. And you had highlighted just a little bit ago before that Gold Fury that there hadn't been a lot of fighting on the left-hand side of the map around the duo lane. That's realistically one of the first fights we've seen happen over there. And while Coast is able to get out of there alive, this Cabrakan 0-3 and 2, it doesn't really ring true with what you expect when you see Cabrakan locked in. They just haven't been able to find the style for Cold Alpacas draft.
No, they did go 3 blinks to begin with outside of the gate on Astiniax, on Preds, and on Connor. So it wasn't for lack of aggression in their build, it was just lack of aggressive plays like they're just doing right now. They finally managed to find an opening to get our kill, and they make him pay. Get his Aegis for the good measure as well.
But at what cost? Pretty Prime just eviscerated there. I mean, Johnny goes for the mez, and I think there's a couple of shots left, at least in my mind. But then Zeros, with just 1 tap, is able to find the rest of that health bar. No issue. Johnny uses his ult in order to reposition there. And so you lose Arkle again, maybe not the most favorable trade, and finally one that it feels somewhat better for Alpacas because you get a 1-for-1. But ultimately, the only thing left on the map, objective-wise, neutrally, is that Fire Giant. And I guess technically Totemoku, right in the same area. But with the 3 tier 1 towers already gone, down at a deficit of gold and control, it just feels like Beltslap are slowly but surely easing into this. I'm excited to see where they go next. I mean, do you group around the Fire Giant here? And like you said, it's 16 minutes in. This is typically where Beltslap, if they can win 1, could just run away with the rest.
I'd start to maybe group and try and push down the tier 2 tower, force them into a fight that they're not necessarily comfortable with, or look for a fight in the jungle and look to utilize Zeros just shooting through the walls at a great distance where they can't see him from, Johnny's surprise attack from the sky. There's a lot of options here for Beltslap to force fights that Cold Alpacas don't really realistically want to take, and I think it all starts with the fact that they have that Across the Skies ultimate coming up very shortly.
Looks like a Stone of Binding was in there for Astia. Not necessarily something we've gotten to see a whole lot of use out of just yet, but worth noting that it's down there. We wait for that Cabrakan to start getting aggressive. And this is really just the patience, I think, more so from Cold Alpacas. I'm surprised that they're down at this deficit and they're not trying to force something to happen, or maybe it's the other way around. The Beltslap aren't forcing something to happen. A lot of pressure over here on right, though. You wanted to fight in the jungle. With everyone on Cold Alpacas backing, this seems like it could be a good time to make a play for something. I just don't know where they'll go as they look to get aggressive. No one's in a position that is truly defensive here for Cold Alpacas. And ultimately, I mean, they're starting to fall behind. You can see tier 2 items built up right behind Beltslap's tier 3s where they finished, you know, your Ethereal Staff, the Fail Knot coming out for Johnny. I mean, a lot of interesting builds that can come through with the Hunter in the jungle.
Absolutely. Julio's been caught out there. Good taunt to stop the 72 transformations, but he gets up into that somersault cloud and is away to safety. So they do manage to force his ultimate there for free. Good pick by Cold Alpacas. And something I did notice is Vapourish Coast's build. The fact that he's gone to Kin Size as his 3rd item. Not necessarily something I would have looked to have done. If you have a look at the side of Beltslap, no one's really going to be building health too much in the early game. We look at the Sobek to build up health. You know Julio's going to be going into the Soul Eater first, so delays any health on his side. So the Kin Size, not really that effective until you get like 4th or 5th item, I would say, in this game. I would have much rather have seen him go into the Archival, just so we can try and box out the 2 Hunters which he has to try and face. Lower their attack speed, give himself some extra power, and look to just try and outbox them.
Something maybe more akin to what we actually see over there for Arkle. As he's picked it up. Good damage coming out from Zeros. The Gold Fury Pit seems to be the zone of operation right now. Good walls coming out from the Cabrakan to finally lock down Zeros. A lot of damage taken in the Thoth. He's going to get taken out before the final judgment can ring true. And be able to come in, get one. They're going to continue pressing the issue. Johnny goes in to help protect Trixtank, but Arkle is the one that needs the assistance. Dove under the tier 2, going to get taken down by Kana as Pred seems to be a little bit too deep. Might find one kill for this one. Even still, it's a 4-man grouping, 5-man grouping here from Gold Alpacas, looking to pick off Trixtank. That's 3 for 0 as of right now, and they're having no issues burning through the rest of Belt Slap. A lot of towers, a lot of objectives left for them to conquer. Right now, only 2 members that can keep fighting it, and they're going to keep going. I mean, Johnny's doing a lot of damage from the backline, but this seems dangerous even for the best team in Europe. They're going to be going in, diving the tier 2. Johnny's slowed, Johnny's dead, and that's a 4-man wipe on the side of Belt Slap.
Okay, so that fight starts with a Guan Yu cavalry charge near enough, and it ends with a Guan Yu cavalry charge. The cooldown on that ability is just absolutely absurd with 30% CDR, with the fact he's constantly lowering the cooldown by 2 seconds thanks to his passive. And Gold Alpacas, from out of nowhere, find a great fight, manage to basically wipe Belt Slap, and find themselves back to 2,500 gold down. They've made a game out of this from seemingly nothing, and it has to be a misstep by Belt Slap. Looking a bit too aggressive, looking a bit out of position. It starts with zeros just being caught out completely.
And it's not a ton, but it is a little bit of a dent in that lead Belt Slap were able to make, slowly but surely going down to 2,000 instead of 3,000 gold lead. The experience starting to close up as you see a level 20 come out. Julio there, first one there. The rest of Belt Slap trying to catch up to that mark as well. Fury's down, tier 1 tower on left is down. It looks like Belt Slappers finally starting to group up over here on the right-hand side, but I don't know, based on what we just saw, Cold Alpacas have a really good team fight. They're going to start out the Pyromancer and force Belt Slap to call the bluff here.
It looks like the bluff is not going to be called. They're just going to take it. It wasn't a bluff. They were actually going to do it, just take it right in front of them. And that is going to be another objective. More gold closed down on that lead. And it sort of feels like Cold Alpacas are the ones that have the lead. They're the ones controlling the momentum of the game right now, as they're the ones pushing down the tier 1 tower in mid. Belt Slap being hit with a reality check here.
A lot of gold still left on the map, though. That tier 1 in left, still technically standing. It's very easy to glance over because that tower has no health inside of it, and I'm pretty sure Preds, at least if he spends some time over here, might look to change that. He's going to meet up with Johnny over there in the jungle. Coast is going to clear up the Oracle Harpies. Everyone goes back to farming, although Sobek definitely on the hunt and on the prowl for something more. Kind of surprised. I mean, Belt Slap, maybe that one was kind of like touching a hot stove. They're a little timid to get back into that aggressive nature, letting this one ride out a little bit longer.
Could be, and if I'm Cold Alpacas, I'm just quickly going over that fight again, figuring out what went right for us, what was the key deciding factor about us winning that fight so handily, and I think it just has to come down to the fact that they got zeros completely out of position to begin with. Yeah. If they could get rid of this Thoth, this long-range artillery mage, before he's able to use his final judgment, before he's able to really influence this fight, then they only have to deal with the 2 hunters, and they've got triple thorns on their frontliners, might I add, as well as some good sustain options, some good shred, some good control over on their side. So it'll be very easy for them to dictate the fights in their favor, provided they get rid of the one that can just escape from all of it.
Scared to be a hunter or a mage in this matchup. 3 Bears of Thorns is a little frightening on the other side. A lot of damage coming right back your way. So they'll have to look out for that. Zeros, I think, notably, as you had highlighted, because he died first in the last engagement. But Johnny and Arkle, just because of the way that they deal damage and their builds as of right now, they're going to be hitting pretty hard on those. Preds, though, that decides to aggress, goes right in onto Zeros, gets the beads, but it's not going to be enough to find the kill. Kana's going in with the ult. This came up twice in the last fight, but he's not going to dive the tier 2. Not this time, not with this many members of Belt Slap around. Kana's going to call off the aggression. Trixtank wants to go in. Trixtank gets walled off from the crew, and Trixtank almost eats too much, still manages to get out of there. Teamwork from Belt Slap saves the support and gets them a kill. Preds goes down in the process. Julio's clone chasing down the rest. It looks like Belt Slap are going to disappear alongside this mid-tier 1 tower that they're about to lose. But other than that, they're still taking the trade.
I don't know if that's a worthwhile trade or not. Yes, they managed to pseudo-kill about 3 people on the side of Belt Slap there. I mean, Trixtank almost fell at the very beginning, Zeros almost fell. I think Johnny was quite low towards the end of that fight as well as Julio. So but they do end up losing Preds for that, so gold trade does go in favor of Beltslap, even though the tower does go down. But now they're left with a 4 versus 5, defending against a Fire Giant. As Beltslap see even a whiff of an advantage, you know they're going to press it.
Now health for the FG, going to get leashed as of right now. And the zones coming out, Cold Alpacas, all 4 of them that are alive, dancing around 1 stone. And it looks like that might just be enough. Beltslap going to call this one off. Kana has that ult back up. You had commented on the cooldown that it has as of right now, and he's had that available. Every time they've needed it, it has been ready for them to call. The ward coverage seems to be a little bit better here for Beltslap. Now with Preds alive again, Beltslap don't have that same advantage, and it looks like they're going to go ahead and call this one as a moot point.
And this is one of the perks of the Apollo jungle. Does have the Transcendence available, so it can fly over and still have enough mana to stay as part of the fight, but can look to split push and force somebody from Cold Alpacas to deal with them over on this left-hand side, whilst the rest of the members of Beltslap have a 4 versus 4. Then it comes down to Cold Alpacas' decision-making. Do they have a 5 versus 4 on the Fire Giant, which they can look to win, and just give up a Phoenix, or does Johnny manage to rotate and get a 5 versus 5 off, a 5 versus 4 off in their favor when somebody rotates to defend the Phoenix?
That's that awkward thing, you know what, the same presence that a Chernobog can bring, except you don't have to go in on an opponent. You can land safely and you can fly over the fight just for a little bit to figure out whether or not you want to go in. It'll be interesting to see as the ward games come through. Fire Giant Dance initiated here, 25 minutes in. There's still a 2,000 gold lead for Beltslap. It doesn't feel anywhere near as solid as it used to, especially with this damage coming out. Astia's level 15 right now, still 2 behind Trixtank. You can feel that impacting the way this fight's flowing. Once Kana goes up on the horse, you know things are going to pop off, but for now it feels like Cold Alpacas are just waiting.
Oh, it's a good change of targets here. It looks like Preds has gone onto Johnny straight away. Because his jump interrupted. What a play by Trixtank to finally deal with Preds at the beginning of the fight before he can get any of his nonsense off.
And now Johnny's up in the sky. He's looking for more. He's going to come crashing down in mid, looking for the kill on the coast. Gets the beads. Not quite the Aegis, but there's Kana forced to retreat using that big key ultimate for these team fights. And once again, it's a 4v5, and immediately Beltslap turn heel, run straight to the Fire Giant. They know what they are going to try and do. The question is whether or not they can accomplish it here. They're burning it down, half health already for this Fire Giant. Astia trying to get in there as the Cabrakan not going to be anywhere near in time, and now just out of position. The walls come up, but the life goes down. Astia going to be spending that time in the black and white, watching over his team's shoulders, and they're just going to be forced to retreat. This tier 2 tower does not offer a lot of protection with 2 hunters on the squad.
Okay, so it may be about 10 minutes later, but Beltslap on the 27th minute mark have managed to find the key fight that he needed to win, and look to be back in control of this game, back up to 5,000 gold ahead. Phoenix should be falling down as well. Trixtank wanted more, but Pretty Prime just about avoids that pluck, and Preds is back alive. Can't say the same thing for the Phoenix. Or Johnny.
Oh, Johnny just gets eviscerated, popped off like it's nothing. Preds able to come back and get a kill, but like you said, the Phoenix is gone. 3-man stun from Kana as they continue their aggression. Good ricochet from the Hu Yi, but not enough to get the peel. That's going to be 2 more kills, 3 more kills on their side. A 4-man wipe once again, and Cold Alpacas find themselves maintaining some semblance of control after what felt like a game spiraling out of their hands.
I'm not so sure, like, can they end here?
I mean, they got 30 seconds until Johnny, the tier 2s. I mean, look how many towers there are, Alpha. 5 towers?
I suppose it's the towers that stop them, yeah.
It's a lot of gold,
I suppose it is the towers. He's going to look to take them out, look to try and take as much gold as possible. Maybe even get a Phoenix in return for the one that went down on right-hand side, but Preds has been the one just given the duty of stopping 5 minutes pouring on that right-hand side. Johnny's back up now. Julio's up in 10 seconds. Archer up 10. Shiro's up in 10 now as well. So it's just the Phoenix, but I don't think they even get that.
Oh no, they go so hard. They get 3 towers out of it, but only those 3. Johnny dancing around. That Transcendence paying dividends right now. He is just having the time of his life in that chariot. And it doesn't look like he's going to get aggressive, or maybe I spoke too soon. Trixtank once more. And that might be enough for the rest of the squad to continue aggressing. There's going to be the pluck, and there's the dive down. And still over half mana as he gets aggressive. Johnny, though, eating way too much of his health bar. Forced to use that Aegis. The dash going to get him out of there, but not far enough. He ends up going down for his team's aggression. Julio, low health in the middle
Zero's
of the fight,
next.
trying to stay alive. There is going to be the aggression coming down from Coast. Landing down in the middle of 5 is going to be Zeros. And if they couldn't win before, now seems like an awfully good time to get aggressive. Arkle forced to run back to the fountain. That Phoenix already weakened. There might still be 3 towers up, but this is looking like a good fight for Cold Alpacas.
This is a great fight. This is a great opportunity for them to end. Just the one problem target is Arkle, and I think because of the fact that he has that peel around with the Sobek and the Wukong, they are going to back off, play it safe. I'm not so sure I agree with that call. Just go for the end. This is one of the best opportunities you're going to get against a team like Belslap potentially in the game. But instead, it is going to be the back off, it is going to be the retreat, it's the safe option, the Pyromancer, and the game still continues on just shy of the 30-minute mark.
What a roller coaster that comes through. I mean, you say, like, it's 29:40 currently on the clock, and just a little bit ago at 27 minutes, we were talking about Belslap potentially ending the game because of their Fire Giant. That Phoenix defense turning a lot around. And the way Cold Alpacas have been fighting, finally find themselves in the lead, both in experience, although they're level 20, so that doesn't matter too much, but in gold, which is important at this point. But Fire Minions still coming down right lane. They're having to deal with those on the Titan currently. They still have 3, no, now only 2 towers to deal with. That tier 1 and left finally went down thanks to some minions. But there's not enough pressure in the world. I mean, I don't know if you can buy that space back that they just had. With 2 members down on Belslap, it feels like a window may have closed on them. They just hope they can reopen it. Fire Giant comes back in about a minute. Gold Fury's currently up, and it looks like Belslap have their eyes on the prize.
You have to fancy just how the team fights go dictates really who will win this game. For me, if the team fights are over in the space of about 3, 4, 5 seconds, I've got to give it to Cold Alpacas given the burst that they have. But if team fights last a bit too long, then you sort of see Belslap creeping back into those team fights. And right now it's not about which team can lane the best. It's not about which team has the better early game draft. It's about which team can team fight better. It's about which team has got the best team fight oriented draft, because we're now in this later stage of the game. I have to say that Cold Alpacas have been impressing me, and I'm giving them the slight edge in these team fights because of how tight-knit they seem to be, whilst Belslap on slightly different pages on which is what's best. Do they look to fight? Do they look to retreat? Which target did they look to peel for? These sort of questions just haven't been super clear in the answers from Belslap.
Just as fast as Cold Alpacas managed to find themselves that small lead, it dissipated back in favor of Belslap. Fire Giants respawn, and now is the question of the hour. Kana undying, Coast undying so far this game. Can they keep that up as the game goes on, defend themselves and find a Fire Giant for their squad, or is Belslap going to have something interesting to say about it? This split right now at least indicates that, to me, Cold Alpacas want to go in. They just don't know where or when they want to attack, because there's not a lot of good targets on Belslap to get in on.
No, the only one they can really engage on here, I'd say, would be Pretty Prime. Vaporish Coast has had a knack of finding his Bifrost at the right time before any sort of exuberant damage comes on top of him. But Pretty Prime with his Combat Blink as well also proves a difficult target to engage upon. Like you said, it has to be a perfect engagement here from Trickstack. It needs to be a blink pluck onto somebody without beads. That's just Pretty Prime for the next 8 seconds. So the window is very much shut here for a team fight engaged by Belslap.
All relics going to be available now, all ults available now. Everything is about as even as you could get in this game 32 minutes in. Still that small smidge of a lead for Belslap. But once that mid-Phoenix comes up, which Johnny has been attending to the last few minutes, and they'll be perfectly fine to let this one go in their way, but pushed under the tier 2 tower. Walls come up from the Cabrakan, but it's not going to be enough. Julio now, the one that's getting aggressed on. Protection shreds coming out from Kana, but that's going to be Johnny crashing down. The damage looking a little bit better for Belslap, but they're going to have to figure out if they can secure it. Coast gets out once again, and Preds finds the first kill onto Arkle. Loses his life ward in the process, but is able to get that 1-for-1 trade. Pretty Prime low. Johnny with a double is going to be able to continue the onslaught of damage. Prime is going to be taken down by Julio, and that's going to be a 3-for-1 trade. Now it's the Fire Giant or a Phoenix. The question is up to Belslap to answer. Johnny just once kills, and he's going to chase down the Cabrakan with the help of his squad. They should be able to find this one. As fast as he is, he shouldn't get out of here, but you never know. There, finally, Johnny secures the deal. 4 gone, Coast alive. They have the Phoenix exposed, but it looks like the team's fallen back.
just going to fall back. Without our kill, maybe they're feeling themselves a bit hesitant about their chances to end, especially with a Porsche Coast alive well with his ultimate. So instead, why not just pick the Fire Giant up? It's enhanced, you can then look to just fight on towers, fight on Phoenixes, without a care in the world for them. The big question here on my mind is, do they hold out for Arkle to respawn?
5 seconds left. Looks like they're going to do so. Yeah. They're being nice to their hunter. This is something I feel like sometimes you don't get to see that. They meme him for not having it, but I guess they want that control. Again, the map state pretty equal, honestly, considering we're 34 minutes into this. Neither team has a very distinct advantage, except for maybe the half health dealt to that tier 2 tower and left. And the fact that the last fight went pretty heavily in favor of Belt Slap. A lot of things this game, Alpha, have just been going back and forth. I genuinely don't know. I mean, I guess with Fire Giant, there's finally something for Belt Slap, but even then, the last time they had Fire Giant, they had a 4-man wipe.
Yeah, but this time it's Enhanced Fire Giant. It's something completely different, you know, extra regen, extra power, extra backdoor protection removals. So, with that, Belt Slap might actually fancy their chances a bit more here, but something I hadn't even picked up on until I've just seen the pop-up for Heartseeker on him. Julio's build isn't what you traditionally see on a Wukong. It's very low on terms of health. I mean, 3 items are going to give you health, the rest of them are going to give you power, but 5 of the items will give you power. He's looking for a very almost assassin-style build here for this Wukong, and I think that's going to complement the rest of the Belt Slap's dive as much as possible, because they just want to immediately take out Pretty Prime. They want to take out Porsche Coast before he gets through that teleport cliff, and the best way to do that is just pump as much damage into him as possible. So going that Arendite to land on top of him is going to absolutely obliterate his health.
We get those last 2 tier 2 towers, more gold in their pocket. The rich get richer in this case for Belt Slap. They're going for a 3-2 split, trying to figure out where to aggress. Trix Tank going to be mark number 1 for a pluck. If he can find it. No, it's actually going to be Asti who gets aggressive, and they send 5 people over to defend left. Mid falls in the blink of an eye. Right Phoenix is already winking, and it looks like Julio, Johnny, they're going to run right over there, take that one, no problem. The rest of the crew just trying to stabilize over there and left, and they're not sweating. I mean, look at the health bars. Nobody is hurt right now. That's 2 Phoenixes down thanks to the jungler and the solo laner here for Belt Slap. Those backdoor protection removals coming in handy, and now they're just 1 clean fight away from a Titan end.
They don't even have to win the fight. They can just push into this Phoenix and don't necessarily have to get the kills, but can just get the advantage from it. Pretty Prime getting out plucked early here, so the rest of the fight engages on the backside. Zero is forced to dash away defensively, but look who's there chasing.
Kana going to be able to get 1-0, so the first to fall. Every time that's happened, it's been better for Cold Alpacas. They get 2 here without losing 1 in the process. Make that 3 as Johnny goes down. What can Julio do in the background? You had highlighted his build, giving him a little bit of extra damage. Can he find the kills to help equal this one out? The mid laner already gone. Trix Tank doing his best to fight, but Coast is just tearing through him with these autos. It's only the solo laner and the support left for Belt Slap. Honestly, I'd expect they want to get out, but Julio goes back in, goes down. That's 40 seconds without anybody. Theoretically, this is a Cold Alpacas win, but they're all busy having to defend the base.
No, just send 3 people up to try and get the Titan win right now. 1 person to defend the base, just 1. I'd say keep a Stiniax back, and have Connor, Preds, and Vaporishkos run this down. Preds is trying to run down Trix Tank right now, but I think the Fire Giant regen is just helping him live it. Oh, never mind. No Fire Giant regen for you.
Well, they finally get that deicide, 30 seconds, 40 seconds after the first member dies? It takes a little while to get there, but these respawn timers benefit them. And Alpha, I can't help but feel, I mean, literally the window was open. A second time someone was able to pry it through, and it falls apart because of the fact that they just aren't able to get there in time. They don't dedicate the people as you had highlighted. Zeros respawns, Johnny's back, Arkle's back, Julio's got 10 seconds left. It's going to be a little bit before we have Trix Tank. This is looking like another Fire Giant because Belt Slap are controlling the game. 2 Phoenixes down, they're in the lead, but they just can't seem to close it out.
Oh, and Johnny is going to use his ultimate. He has 30% CDR, so I don't think he's going to mind 40% if he's got power potion, so he's not going to mind if it's on cooldown. Just scouting out, seeing where everybody is. It's basically extended Nuar ult. You can see where everybody is on the map thanks to him, and he's identified that this is going to be a free Pyromancer because of the fact that there's 2 hunters around, and it goes down quick without a trace.
He's still got half his mana bar. He's not even sweating it. He flew around the map, around the world, twice and was still able to land. Very, very happy with his abilities and setup. No worries here, and he knows that everybody, at least at the time, Cold Alpacas was over there on left defending. Fire Minions still pushing down left, or mid and right, I should say. And Fire Giant going to spawn in about 10 seconds. Cold Alpacas rejoin the fight, but I don't know if they're going to have what it takes. I mean, where do you go? Who do you control? Every time Zeros has died first, it feels like Cold Alpacas win the fight.
It has, but I think that's just going to lend credence to Zero stepping back a bit further. And the fact that he's got Ethereal Staff in his build means he's difficult to dive. He's had this item for a while now. I'm interested to see what he sells his boots for in the end, because if I'm Zeros, I might go for a defensive item just to help me survive the dive. The Fire Giant needs some survival tips right now. Belt Slap do secure it under pressure, though. And this is going to be a fight engage here from the Cold Alpacas.
Preds is going to go for the ult onto Johnny. Johnny's going to turn the damage right back around and chase him down in lane. Finds one there. The rest of Cold Alpacas incredibly low. Julio chases down one, gets himself two in the process. Prime once again having his health bar just chunked down by Belt Slap. And this time, Coast stays alive, but it feels a little bit more bittersweet. You have one member left to defend against a Fire Giant squad in Belt Slap. Good ult to just go ahead and send them sailing. Keep yourself alive once again. Phoenixes have respawned, but Belt Slap gonna go ahead and run right on into the Titan room and finally take game number one.
If I said to you at the beginning of the day, the longest game by the time we get midway through the third set is going to be the first game of Belt Slap and Cold Alpacas, you would have called me insane. But Cold Alpacas come through with an impressive performance here, an encouraging one, considering they took Belt Slap the distance and looked like they could win the game at times.
Yeah, I'm thoroughly surprised. I mean, this is, like you said, the fact that that was one of the longest games that we've gotten to see, I think just in Belt Slap's history this year, is impressive from Cold Alpacas. Even though it ends up resulting in a loss, the fact that they can push them the distance is a very good showcase for them and makes me even more excited for game number two. But the biggest question I have, we got to see it work out there. Do you go back to the Apollo jungle, or do you let that one sit and bring Johnny back in on another hard carry?
I think, given that Cold Alpacas will probably be on a bit of a high with that game, even though they lost, I would go to something a bit more traditional, a bit more Johnny flavor. I would go back into the Bakasura. We saw that perform well for Preds in the previous set. Maybe go into the Kali, considering that wasn't even picked or banned. Maybe just go tier Julio and just say, right, we're going to just put all our cards on the table. This is exactly how we can perform. This is our top tier roster, and we're going to end the game in 17 minutes.
Well, we'll see the adjustments they make as they go forward in game number two, but it'll be on the other side of this break.
Wasting time on my own. All the places you said we go. All this pain builds within. Footsteps fade, what could have been? Finally I feel more free. The end of you and me. Let it go, let it be. My heart belongs to me. My heart belongs to me.
This one's a little closer than maybe Belt Slap had expected, but in a 40-minute game, the favorites still come out on top. Hey, another thing that is expected is how cool the TMNT skins are in-game. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are crashing onto the battleground with a brand new battle pass. Unlock Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Leonardo now, and a bunch of other skins in the Prestige Pass. Cowabunga! This is all example text. You don't have to read this. Make the ad your own. Mifflin, he's here with me on the desk to talk about what happens there in game number 1. Miff, it looks like it's going to be a big Belt Slap win. Things slow down, and Belt Slap end up winning it nonetheless.
Yeah, Dave. Look, production told me to tell you, you really were like supposed to follow what was in the parentheses. But anyway, look,
Right,
I think that
directions.
cold Alpacas can come away happy. It's something that we had AJ
Sure.
allude to on the cast. They dragged Belt Slap to 40 minutes in a game that you already said looked like they had won in the first 10. So if anything, sure, Belt Slap come away with a win here, but are they going to be satisfied with how it happened? I don't think so. I think they really should come in with some absolute heat into game 2.
Well, Mifflin, it's time for our resident jungle main's opinions. What do we see here from this Apollo in game 1? Obviously it worked, 2.63 KDA, but did it impress you is ultimately the question.
It didn't truthfully have to play like a dedicated jungler throughout the entirety of the match. It almost always was using the ultimate to come into a fight that was already happening. Johnny was playing this backseat role where
Typical
the majority of the
jungler,
time he was farming up and then waiting for something to happen, usually around Trick's tank. If that's the playstyle and you think you can get away with it, if the enemy team isn't able to bring some sort of aggression to the early game, Cold Alpacas certainly didn't, I think that this Apollo jungle can certainly work, just don't expect it to be super proactive in the early.
Well, that's, it's just a pick for everyone who wants that hunter experience. Look, I don't have to do anything for 95% of the fight. I'll come in at the end, I'll throw out some auto attacks from range, and I'll get the kills that way. So, Johnny probably just bored of doing everything himself, right, and wanted to get kind of that hunter backseat, kick up your feet type play style where the team wins the fight for you, things like that. Obviously, jokes aside, I know Finch probably would like to have words with me right now on that one. Vaporish Coast, though, he did have the hunter play style in this one yet again. 5-0-12. This guy, he's having himself a day, Miff, and I think probably the best avenue for the Cold Alpacas to maybe find a win is just good old-fashioned hunter carry.
Man, Coast is looking good. I said it almost in jest that he was going to be the sole win condition for Cold Alpacas in the initial desk, but he's looking incredibly good. Every single time someone tries to challenge him to a mechanics fight, oh, you got to play perfectly if you want to win here, Vaporish does it every single time. He's playing well, he's positioning well inside of these team fights as displayed by his slash line. He's always in the rotation path perfectly as well. I think that it really is. That's the win condition. Let's get him a ROM. Let's get him whatever he needs. If he asks for Ho Yi, get him the Ho Yi because he is your win condition.
Yeah, Belt Slap, I think, smart enough that they likely continue to take that ROM away. At least was banned out in game 1. Would be a tall task to leave that one on the table. We'll see how Belt Slap choose to prioritize their first few bans and their first few picks in this one. This is expected Belt Slap win, but unexpected how close this one actually was. So can Belt Slap clean things up? We'll have to wait and see. I think the jungle still becomes my focus here in this one, where Preds on their Circuit, we've seen sometimes what he's able to do. Keeping pace with Johnny is always going to be difficult. But I want to levy a similar question to the end of that cast over to you, Mifflin. At this point, are you even attempting Apollo out of the jungle again, or are you thinking, all right, a little too close for comfort, let's get back to something comfortable?
I think that, if anything, even if Johnny wants to play the Apollo again, and he certainly might because he looked very good on it, the rest of the team should be letting him know, hey, look, they're letting all your priority picks through. The Kali, the Bakasura, the Alquang all made it through the first phase last game. Why not teach them why it's a mistake to let that happen? So I would be surprised if we see the Apollo reprised by Belt Slap in the jungle role, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see it get picked up again just to throw a wrench in the works, right? It's going to be a fantastic flex pick because you've already displayed we're willing to play at jungle.
We're going to have to see some different picks in some of these roles here. Thoth taken away by the Cold Alpacas. Circuit banned out. Rom, that was the notable pick we were looking towards. Rom does get banned out here, so Vaporish Coast is going to have to go to something else, whether it's the Heimdall or Ho Yi. Cupid was left unpicked, unbanned in our last game, which I thought was somewhat interesting there, Mifflin. Still a Guan Yu first pick. I think we sung his praises a little bit here. How about this? We saw a Chang'e, remember, banned by the Cold Alpacas in Game 1 later on in the ban phase. Maybe this is why. Maybe someone on Belt Slap loves this pick.
I think it's likely going to be going towards 0 in the mid. Just that anti-heal potential, the ability to fight constantly inside the 3v3. It's certainly going to fit Belt Slap style very well. And it's got a decent counter matchup into Guan Yu, just removing some of the ability for him to heal his team, as well as the ability to escape out of that cavalry charge every single time with the Moonlight Dance. I think Chang'e is going to be lacking a little bit in pressure throughout the early game, which is going to make it a little bit harder for Belt Slap to pick up that Apollo jungle if that is something they're willing to go back towards. So it might be indicative of really Johnny's going to go back to that Bakasura style.
Well, Cupid, another god that we had talked about a little bit back and forth in picks and bans for Game 1, was unpicked, unbanned. Now we're going to get to see Vaporish Coast over here on this pick. Miff, maybe touch on Cupid, why you like him, as well as if you're surprised at all that we go back to this Apollo.
Look, Cupid is the second best hunter in my eyes, right behind Rom. Fields of Love being a no-play zone, dealing so much damage, the out-of-combat healing from the hearts, a stun every single time from Heart Bomb more than likely. All is going to line up for a fantastic 1v1 in the lane, as well as the ability to team fight. So I think Cupid has rightfully earned his spot at the top of the meta. It's a little bit interesting that EU has kind of let him fall by the wayside throughout the entirety of today. Apollo, on the other hand, I really don't think it's going into the jungle. How well is Apollo going to mesh up with Chang'e out of the mid lane? I don't think it should be that way. It could, but I'd be surprised.
Well, remember, we sung the praises of Apollo and his ability to be a bit of a flex pick. Seen it even over in the solo lane, obviously Hunter, and then the jungle where we've seen him so far this weekend. So we'll have to hold our horses and see what the final two picks look like here for Belt Slap as we move in to that second ban phase. Still sensing that Trix Tank will need a pick over there for himself. The Sobek will be taken off the table. Trix Tank, though, I think Miff has shown great flexibility in the potential in playing a pretty wide variety of picks there out of that support role. I suppose this is probably more of a Sobek specifically. Doesn't really vibe with us, so let's get him out of here.
Yeah, Sobek's very strong into Guan Yu as well as Cupid, able to just relocate the team, make it harder to find those Scarab's Blessings, so it makes sense to me. Cold Alpacas, I'd be surprised if they let Ganesh through here. It's something that Trix has had a lot of success on in the past, but it seems like they're really trying to deliberate where they want to go with it, which is pretty smart. You don't want to allow Trix to get something that's highly aggressive, and it is going to be the Ganesh band coming through. A little lucky guess for me. Now, we've got a lot left on the table. Myth. Yeah, easy. Right up here.
All right, there's still a lot left on the table, and it's two different mindsets in the second wave of bans. It's Persephone, Ra taken away, mid lane centric there for Belt Slap. Obviously, the Khepri's already taken off the table, so no real potential for crossover ban strategy there. Jingwei does keep things interesting here, in that Jingwei will be in the long lane. Who's she going to be paired with becomes the big question there. So you look at this and, you know, I'm kind of at a loss because you'd think it'd be Hercules in that support role, but I suppose things could shift around if Trix Tank doesn't want to go over to the Herc. But we'll stick with what we do know here, Mifflin, and that it's going to be another Vulcan for pretty prominent. It's looking like Preds is going to bring back the Naja.
Look, man, this Naja Vulcan lineup, yeah, it's easy to line up the ultimates. Windfire Wheels into the Earthshaker, sure, it's gonna work out, but how well is Vulcan going to be able to survive this backline dive potential of Belt Slap? If you look at their draft right now, and I think we can assume that this is likely going to be Apollo in the jungle now, it's all dive. Chang'e, W key. Hercules, W key. Apollo is going to dunk the Vulcan in the back. He doesn't care about the frontline presence of the blue team here. It's just so difficult matching up with a Loki as well. That's some more dive. This Vulcan's going to have a very hard time, and Khepri's work is going to be cut out for him.
There's no way. Yeah, okay. I was going to say.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I was
cool.
confused before. I would have been even more confused somehow if the Loki was locked in. So, if we're really deciphering this puzzle, Miff, it's Chang'e mid, I suppose Terra, Jingwei in the duo lane, Apollo jungle, Hercules out of solo. Belt Slap, you know, they feel like that's the best strategy to make this one a 2-0.
It's interesting, right? It's not your average team makeup. It's not, okay, we've got the hyper carries for the late game that are going to be the back line. We're going to have tanky frontliners. It's a very interesting strategy in that almost every single one of them, barring Jingwei, should be holding the W key the entire time. And
Right.
Cold Alpacas essentially give them a clear line, a clear target. Who do we need to shut down on this team? I'm not worried about the Guan Yu. This Naja is almost a non-factor in my mind. I'm gunning for this Vulcan every single time. When it's that clear who the target's going to be, though, it makes it a little bit easier for this Khepri to perform. So it'll be
Absolutely.
interesting. It's a clashing of ideologies in this game.
Yeah, on the flip side then, what does this Cold Alpacas draft want to do in your mind? Set up with the Naja and knock down with the Vulcan?
This Naja is going to need a pop-off in the early game. We need a ton of ultimates setting up for this Vulcan. And then from there, if you pull a lead, you can rely on your ability to team fight around this Guan Yu or around this Cupid, elongate the fights with your healing, and play around the objectives. I think Cold Alpacas have the ability to get there, but the early game is not going to be easy.
Well, the Cold Alpacas have shown potential. Can they convert potential into wins? Game 2 will let us know.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one that comes through. Vulcan making another reappearance. Same thing with the Naja jumping right back into this game for Cold Alpacas. Something that was a little risky earlier when we got to see it from them. Belt Slap on the other side, bringing in the Terra. Not someone we get to see too often. So Alpha Jackal, I mean, just coming at these teams with the lineups they have, do you think is Belt Slap taking this game, or is Cold Alpacas bringing something just too spicy to count out?
I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that Belt Slap had Chunga and Terra healing, I would 100% have actually given the draft to Cold Alpacas, because the fact they've got the Khepri, they've got the Cupid, they've got some good sustain back in the Guan Yu corner reprising that I'm extremely happy about. But then, like I said, Belt Slap have got some good sustain options on their side. Double ADCs again, meaning they have to win the fights instantly, otherwise they just lose them because of sustained damage. And they have in-combat healing thanks to the Terra ult and the Chunga heal. It's almost impossible in my mind for Cold Alpacas to be winning one of these fights. They have been outdrafted here, in my mind.
We'll have to see how they're able to handle this as the game goes forward. Nothing crazy at the beginning of this one, even though I think both teams had the capabilities to maybe try and force an issue. I think this really is coming down to whether or not this pressure is going to be good. Speaking of pressure in the duo lane, Trickstank going to get pulled back. Still Terra, still level 1, so taking a lot of poke. No kills as of yet. I just don't know where to look. I mean, like you said, early on, at least support-wise, feels like Cold Alpacas are going to have a lot of healing. They have a lot of setup over here in the duo lane. It seems like Arkle and Trickstank are going to have a little bit of trouble keeping things going their way, as Johnny is the one that's maybe in a little bit of danger in the mid lane.
That's a good set of beads, though, from Arkle on the left-hand side to keep him safe from that pluck from Astiniax after his blink. And good sustain, once again coming from the Chunga to keep Johnny nice and healed up and topped up in the mid lane. Doesn't even have to use his health potion here just yet. I think he's used one already. So Johnny already finds himself at a slight advantage. 12 Assassin's Blessing stacks over the 10 on Preds' Naja. And Preds going for something we haven't seen for a long time from junglers, the Boots Rush. A lot of junglers these days going for a Mace, or as we see here, the start of Transcendence in the Morningstar, just because it gives a bit of extra power, a bit of extra clear potential, rather than the movement speed.
Yeah, and like you said, interesting to see that change. I'm going to be curious how this Naja keeps up the pressure, or maybe lack thereof, otherwise as the time goes on. I also want to throw this out there. Every time we go to the duel lane, it says King Arkle, and every time I look up to see his player name, I almost immediately say King Arthur. And so I think he did that on purpose. But either way, I think
He's
that it's just
definitely
a
done on
funny
purpose.
coincidence. The only one on this team outside of Zeros that has a title on at all, because on the other side you got the world champion. So Arkle, well, just had to memorize the fact that this is not a King Arthur hanging out over there. And speaking of hanging out over here, good root from the Terra. Not going to ultimately find any pressure as it comes through. Khepri and Cupid just feel like they're going to be difficult to displace. I feel like the pressure, if anyone's going to die here, it would need to be the Vulcan.
Potentially, yes, and we've seen exactly what happens with Terra in dual lane as well. Level 1 Terra doesn't have the pressure. Level 2 Terra doesn't have the pressure. Level 3, hello, pressure, it's ours again. You can't do anything about it because I got insane wave clear because I'm Terra. And you have also got Jingwei to help me back it up. Good double stun there, and the damage comes out to the Vaporish Coast. Immediately gets the pressure, dash comes out, one more basic attack will do it! but a good root from Astiniak saves the life of his hunter.
Good root, good mez, everything all around, making sure that one does not come through, or good stun, I should say, there from Coast to make sure that the pressure stays turned the other way. And now you can see Vulcan as well as Naja on this side. They're going for their red buff, but they're hanging out on the left-hand side, ready to maybe react. Trickstank, I mean, playing with that patented aggression, but already falling a little bit behind. I mean, he was lower earlier, just now ticks to level 4. Preds is going to be over here. But it doesn't look like the sash is going to come through. Ult's available, as you just highlighted. Is he going to get in there? Just go for the Alpha Harpy. No, it's Johnny who comes in. Blink going to come through from the Capri. The double stun, or just the single stun, going to be able to find it. And first blood goes to Arkle. Now they're going to be dashing in. Low health is Preds. And it looks like Belt Slap aren't going to be able to close the gap on this one. But in the blink of an eye, they turn that fight on the head.
Yeah, you think you've got the gank potential over on this duo side. No, I'm just going to come across the skies and almost kill your jungler, kill your support, and kill any potential you have for the invade. But without beads, up to the sky goes Johnny, and could be over a world of hurt on landing.
He's going to be able to come out of this one still alive. Preds can't say the same. Taken down. Coast going to be able to survive this one. A pretty good slash line throughout game number 1. Looks like that's going to continue to be the case here. But 2 for 0. A much better start. Last time it was a bunch of 2 for 1s in favor of Belt Slap. This time they're not dropping any of the kills.
That was a very, very well positioned though by Trickstank to block the Heart Bomb coming out from Vaporish Coast. Don't forget, Vaporish Coast still only level 4, so did not have the Filter Love available as follow-up to that Windfire Wheels. Had to hit that Heart Bomb to get a kill onto Johnny, but blocked by Trickstank, saves the life of his jungler, allows Arkle to get the second kill of the game, 2-0 for the ADC, who's typically thought of as one of the potentially exploitable areas on the team of Belt Slap, gets himself off to a flyer.
Now the rotations have come through. Trickstank, as well as this Capri, going to be joining up in the mid lane. And I'm, again, keeping my eyes all on this Vulcan. Pretty prime. I questioned it earlier. Your damage numbers were absolutely insane. And so now I just want to maybe see more of the same. I like seeing Vulcan come through and get played. Not a mage that we're typically used to seeing. It's just going to be dependent on that ult. I mean, I had said it earlier, just nice big AoE, secure in terms of, you know, Gold Furies and Fire Giants. But do you think it actually has some capabilities of hitting, like, Belt Slap? I mean, there's a lot of squishy targets on that side. Johnny, Zero's, Arkle, if it connects, they're dead.
I really don't like the Vulcan pick in this matchup. You picked it up into a Hercules, you picked it up into a Apollo, but most importantly, you picked it up into a Chang'e. Chang'e's just going to avoid most of your damage. You're going to avoid your meatball backfire combination with just immuning it completely, and then just goes aggressive on you because you got nothing else to do. But then also the Terra pickup afterwards is a very smart pickup. Knock-up immunity means that it's going to be difficult for Vulcan to, again, do his combo onto the Terra. It's going to be a very difficult match here for Pretty Bro to influence in terms of his crowd control. So he has to rely on the damage, has to rely on the crowd control coming out from elsewhere. And you have a look at what they've got, it's difficult for them to influence the Chang'e too.
It's going to be hard. Zeros, I think this feels like a pick. I mean, it was banned out from him last time, so maybe something that he already wants to go to. But also, considering how often we saw him getting dove and just massacred as the Thoth, it feels like a safety pick. Definitely going to live a lot longer and have a lot more peel as the Chang'e is. Now it's Coast that might be in trouble. Stun just a little wide there from Trickstank, so it doesn't look like it's going to catch him out. Now the root's gone. Coast doesn't have too much to worry about in terms of aggression from the support player over here. Belt Slap, again, playing aggressive, looking to be the ones in the driver's seat and controlling the game. But Cold Alpacas, this was the same pace that it went in game number 1, and we saw them push us to 40 minutes. It's just going to be whether or not Belt Slap clean up those fights. I don't know if we can count on a 4-man wipe happening again to make sure that that gold lead doesn't mean anything.
No, it's much more difficult for Cold Alpacas to get a 4-man fight here. Mainly because they don't have the same area control that they did in the last game, afforded by the Cabrakan. The Cabrakan plus Guan Yu combination and the Circuit gave them great area denial and controlled what paths Belt Slap could and couldn't take. Now look what they have this time. Yes, they got good area denial with the Vulcan and the Cupid, but they have to play a bit further back than the Cabrakan and the Circuit had to do, meaning that Zeros and Arkil, they're going to find themselves a lot safer in these fights and have more freedom to maneuver, which is not what you want to give this team. You especially don't want to give Zeros breathing room, because if he has the time to just think about what he wants to do, he will always come up with the best decision possible.
Yeah, that's the dangerous game that you have to play when you're up against Beltzak. You need to get him down and get him down fast, otherwise they'll figure out how to turn a team fight around, even maybe find some stuns. Trickstank, again, continually looking for more, but it doesn't feel like the team has the aggression behind him. When Johnny's around, I think that will change. Now that they're in the 3v3, they've got that. But Trickstank, or I should say Zeros here, doesn't scream early game for me. I think that ult may be coming through from Chang'e, the cascading stun that can come in. Very, very helpful. It doesn't feel like they're looking for as much of a fight. Again, relatively slow compared to what we're used to seeing out of them, even though, I think as you had highlighted earlier, they'll hold similar to old NRG Epsilon back in those days where, you know, it's 17 minutes and then the gate breaks down and they come swimming.
Yeah, but I think it's just, again, a similar situation to game number 1, where they feel like if they go aggressive in the early game and look for the fights in their own terms, that Cold Alpacas early game team comp can do the dirty to them. But this time, it is going to be the aggression. Zeros actually does get caught out here, plucked by a Cyniax, and that's a very free pick. Strange to see Zeros being the one as the front line and gets punished for it instantly.
It feels like it's just following that same trend, though, right? Go back to last game. And what's happening to Zeros? Well, he's getting caught out in the front line and getting burned down. Thoth at least had a dash to try and get out of there. Chang'e, the immunity is helpful, but didn't quite get him the escape necessary. That's a pretty big kill onto Preds, making sure that they're impactful earlier on. Went for the boots now into the brawlers available for them, as you had highlighted their build kind of different, rushing the boots first. And the Transcendent's now online for Johnny. I feel like we're about to start seeing a little bit more of these junglers all around.
Yeah, an odd decision for Preds to go into the Ninja tab. I agree, Naja's not got the best attack chain for clearing jungle camps. That long wind up on that final basic attack, especially the early levels, feels like it's, well, Gold Fury, and immediately Johnny sniffs that he needs to be called over, so into the police copter he goes.
Oh, Cold Alpacas confirmed that one, but Johnny confirms the kill. Good res coming out, but not good enough. A Porsche Coast just lands immediately dead. Once again, 3 kills picked up, a double for Arkle. So you get the Gold Fury, but at what cost is the question. Prime, no mana, alone in mid, but it doesn't look like it. Never mind, Trickstank has decided you will go down. The stun comes through after the beads wear out. Chang'e gets aggressive. One more hit is all you need. He's got no mana. Johnny dashes forward just wide, but finds the auto, gets the kill. A 4 for gold trade. Probably not worth it against Beltzak.
Energizing.
Definitely not worth it. I think the second it came out to be a 2 for non-trade, it was not worth it, but doubles that to a 4 for 0, and Arkil, all the meanwhile, has just been allowed to farm up himself. Now finds himself 2 levels above Vaporish Coast in what's considered one of Jingwei's most awkward matchups. Now has the freedom to do whatever he wants to Vaporish Coast here. And if you're the Cupid, this is not the position you want to be in. You want to be ahead in the early game, dictating the duo lane, forcing Arkil into using his ultimate or for his beads early on with the use of your ultimate, but instead Arkle probably just takes the damage and looks to box him out again with his Archival.
Yeah, 4-0-1, like you said, already an item ahead essentially here, just a tier 3 ahead as it comes through. And that's a scary spot to be anybody. A hunter that's down even just by 1. Those 1v1s are going to be a little awkward, but the beads are down, so maybe that opens up a window to try and gank Arkle. Of course, he's chilling, relaxing all the way back by his tier 1. It doesn't look like anyone is going to be getting any pressure in that duo lane anytime soon, at least not against Beltzak. So the pressure will have to come elsewhere. Pluck onto Trickstank, damage from Pretty Prime, but it's Terra. Come on, you know you're not going to kill him, he knows you're not going to kill him. And so he just goes ahead and walks on out of here. But Preds, Kana, and Prime, they're looking for war. In fact, Preds wants it now. He blinks in. He's going to get aggressive. Good ult coming down from Zeros to make sure that the peel is there, but it's not enough to stop Kana from getting back there. This Guan Yu has been game-changing for Cold Alpacas and being able to open up so much for them. It has been a big player, but now it's Pretty Prime once again isolated. The ult from Khepri going to proc and keep him alive here. keep the game going. Cold Alpacas running away, but Pretty Prime, they're not done yet. This Vulcan has a lot
Johnny's in the
further to
sky.
go. Johnny's going to be coming back into this one. They want this Mage more than anything. Trixtank might be the one who gets credit for it. Kana now the one out of position. Good body blocks from Trixtank, just locking down the solo laner. Good juke shoes, making sure he stays alive. But there's 3 people looking at you. Can you really walk out of this one? Trixtank looking for one more route. Gonna find that. The push, the damage, all of it's good enough. 5-0-2 reads Arkle.
Did what he could to survive there. Even delayed some for about 10 seconds with that blink extra. But Tier 1 tower still falls. Tier 2 looks like it might fall down as well. All the meanwhile, Johnny was over there delaying Vaporish Coaster, giving him some aggression back onto him so he couldn't free farm over on the left-hand side. So Beltslab get the best of both worlds here on both sides of the map. Maybe even find themselves yet another gift in the form of Preds once more. They force his beads, they force the Tier 2 tower down, and extend their lead even further, even getting the Cupid ultimate on this left-hand side. Beltslab in total control.
Not a matchup we got to see a lot of throughout the regular season, at least of the SPL. Apollo didn't show up a whole ton until the very end. Showed up a little bit more throughout the Challenger circuit, but this Apollo jungle versus that Cupid still comes out in favor of Johnny. A level up there just in that matchup. 2 levels for almost everyone on the side of Beltslab. I guess 2 out of 5 have that level lead. And ultimately, it's going to come up to them. Preds a little wide on the ult. That's going to be a big one missing from Cold Alpacas.
And the fight started off last time with Preds actually hitting Zeros with his ultimate, but Chunga with their immunity frames on that second ability just avoids being taken up to the sky whatsoever, which is why Zeros didn't have that available to avoid most of the Guan Yu ult damage. But again, that's the second time where you start off this Naja Vulcan combo onto the Chunga and it just doesn't go the way you need it to go. It needs to be taken elsewhere. This Chunga pick has just thrown this Cold Alpacas draft through a complete loop.
Melanie Fury spawning in a little over 20 seconds. And Beltslab seem to be the ones that are, well, definitely in control of the game. The question is, in control of the left side? As of right now, the answer to that one is yes as well. All Tier 1 towers gone. That Tier 1 in right, or Tier 2 in right, I should say, taken down a little bit earlier as well. Kana's been making these rotations, and between the 2 of them, I mean, this Guan Yu, I say what you will about the rest of Cold Alpacas, the way Game 1 went, however the rest of this game's going to go, but this Guan Yu has been game-saving for them, game-changing for them in terms of the ultimate.
I think Connor's put himself up on a pedestal here for the rest of the worlds to see in terms of the Smite scene because of his performances, not in previous game, but this game as well. He's shown that he can be one of the top-tier solo laners when facing up against a top-tier solo laner. He's shown that he has what it takes to tango with one of the best, and maybe will find himself on, the lookout and scouting for some of the higher-end teams in Europe next season.
We have to remember, at the end of the day, it's not a win, or a loss, I should say here, and done. So you're still in the upper bracket, still in this double elim format, so you're still a little comfortable, although Beltslab maybe a little bit more comfortable with that 1-game lead. Johnny, by the way, still just being the eye in the sky, the number 4 helicopter. Just making sure that he's getting the weather correctly. He's got the eyes on the scene. There's going to be the pluck that finally comes through. Julio going to be able to get the lockdown. There's going to be the boulder, but not enough damage to find any kills. Now the fight is separated. Preds is alone and having to use the ult just to disengage. Julio still almost pulls him right back in, but manages to get on out of that one. Zeros in the danger zone, not locked down enough to find the damage, and they're going to be able to stay alive on the side of Beltslab. Continue their aggression coast. That immunity disappears. Your ability to res is gone, and so is the rest of your team, it seems. 3 down in the blink of an eye. Preds 1 hit away, and that's going to be Zeros blinking forward to be able to find that one. Kana left alone. That's a deicide. That's a fire giant. That's Beltslab in control.
And that is 17 minutes on the dot where they get the deicide. It's going to be the fire giant, the full fire giant as well. Patient team fight there from Beltslab, just manages to pick out a Stinny Axe, manages to wait until Johnny's pulled people away from the main grouping that Cold Alpacas had, and the second that they split up, the second they didn't have that safety in numbers, it's the second Beltslab pounce, and they get rewarded handsomely for it with the biggest victory you can have in a team fight, a deicide, a fire giant, a pyromancer. The lead is all theirs.
I mean, honestly, at this point, just trickle in the Oni Fury. Go on over there. That's where the Tier 2 towers are anyway. And it looks like that's going to be the call for Belt Slap. They're running on over to this side. Granted, there's also some buffs over here to clear on out, so they're not too worried about it. I mean, this is such a heavy gold swing and very, very just contrasting to game number 1. Although, at the beginning, Alpha, admittedly, wasn't 13-2, but, you know, a 9K gold lead, almost 10K here for Belt Slap. It was after the first Fire Giant that they had a 4-man wipe that was massive in favor of Cold Alpacas. Is there still a semblance of something like that? I mean, they're locking down Zeros, and they seem to be able to find him consistently. But the question is getting the kill. Oh, the answer is yes, wildly. Can they get away with it? It doesn't seem like it. Pretty Prime going to get the res procced. Very careful, but a boulder right waiting for him. Julio says no to that one. 1-for-1 trade, mid for mid. Now Preds out of position, gonna get locked down. This answers my question. Can they find a 4-man wipe against Belt Slap again? It seems like the answer is no. This Tier 2 in mid, well, it's forfeit.
Oh, they learned their lesson from last time, Belt Slap. Don't allow Zeros to go unpunished if he gets picked, and they've done just that. He gets picked, and they punish the Cold Alpacas by taking 2 of their lives, taking a Tier 2 tower, taking what most likely will be a Phoenix. Connor blinks in, eats a Terror Ultimate for his troubles, and he's just going to fall down here instantly.
I mean, the health bars are not looking good. There goes Coast. Here goes Kana. One more auto finds the pop. Phoenix in mid going to go down, and that's going to do it. I mean, there's technically Vulcan around. No ult, but the damage is there. What can he do to try and fight this against 4 members of Belt Slap? Well, they're going to play it patient. Alpha Jackal, they're going to go for this right-hand Phoenix. Whether or not they can continue that aggression. 30 seconds and a 3v5. Preds going around the side. Sash not going to be able to hit Boulder. Going to be a little wide. Looks like Belt Slap are going to go ahead and back off of this one for a little bit.
Come on. Just try to end the game in something. Come on. I don't know, but Preds is engaged upon. Preds is killed. And Astiniax is probably going to follow here. Trickstank and Pretty Prime. Well, Trickstank and Johnny looking at Pretty Prime. Take out the Vulcan. Kepri's going to follow suit by Julio. And that surely should... He even dives the fountain to bring Vaporish Coast out of it.
I mean, they're finding the damage. The Titan is taking some of it, but they are looking for those kills. Maybe going for the last-minute deicide. The blink knock-up from Julio just a little wide. Kahana's hanging out. Has his ult available. They're grouping for the heal. This could be the moment for him to try and fight back. Just trying to get some minions in their favor. Fire minions here in mid. Gonna pour in alongside Belt Slap. They're gonna be able to get the damage down on the Titan, and it should be game. Kana trying to stop that one. 3-man stun, but is it going to be enough? The Titan falls down faster than they could hope. Coast just a little bit quicker, and they're gonna be able to win the second game in half the time of the first.
Yeah, I think Belt Slap got hit with a slight wake-up call in terms of just how strong the teams were going to be they were up against, and all of a sudden just said, okay, we have a 7th gear, we have an 8th gear, we have a 9th gear, we have a 10th gear, let's just put it into 6 for now, because it took them a while to get going in that game again, but the second they won a fight on 17 minutes, it was just completely over for them. 1 back to base, buy all the items you need, and we're just going to go down to mid-Phoenix and end.
Yeah, the first one, really solid tug of war between the two teams.
Oh, yeah.
Great plays coming out from Cold Alpacas and from Belt Slap. Pushes us to 40 minutes. The second game, standard for Belt Slap, I guess is the best way to word it. They do exactly what we expect out of them. They win it fast, and they win it convincingly. Either way, they take this set 2-0 and stay alive in the top bracket. We'll go back to the desk as they close this one out.
This one mostly standard here from Belt Slap. That's what you expect for this squad moving forward here throughout this weekend. It is the 2-0 on the set, and Belt Slap seems to be looking good. Mifflin's still with me to round out our 3rd out of 4 sets here today. Miff, what do you see from Belt Slap in this one that gets it just so much quicker than what we saw in Game 1 about half the time?
I think Arkle got mad, I guess, that the first game took a long time. I mean, it's almost a trend, right, in the EU SCC, where it's a lot of ADC diff floating around, be it Vaporish Coast popping off or Ikrom this time, Arkle. They've been finding a really strong path throughout the duo lane to create these leads to fight around the neutral objectives on the duo side of the map, be it Gold Fury or the mid camps, and Belt Slap do just that perfectly on cooldown 20 minutes straight.
Yeah, once Arkle got started here in this one, it was going to be very difficult to stop Belt Slap. And it's not, this is one of those games where it didn't necessarily feel like it was just just constant fighting over and over and over again. I mean, look, there's 10 kills, 11 kills for Belt Slap on the board, and this game would end about 3 minutes later. So it's kind of that slow, grindy build-up that Belt Slap then just pull away over the course of 2 or 3 minutes, and really all she wrote in that one. So that's tough for the Cold Alpacas. I mean, you look great here this morning. Always was going to be a tall task to upset Belt Slap here, but you might have had some confidence going into Game 2 after the way things went there in Game 1, but still a chance for the squad.